Welcome. Welcome to Community of Christ with the Shenandoah Congregation in San Antonio, Texas. Community of Christ is a welcoming and loving faith community. We proclaim Jesus Christ and promote communities of joy, hope, love, and peace. Please take a moment and like our video, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss anything, and comment to tell us where you are joining us from. Keep our contact details and share with us how we can minister to your needs. Find more information at www.seaofchristsa.org. If you would like to view past services, follow this link on our website. We welcome you, we acknowledge you, and we love you. Shalom.
And now Wayne will be giving us our morning message.
Well, good morning, and thanks, Kelly, for having the bravery to put me at the end so that I'd have time to get here from my other congregation. So I'm speaking at the other congregation as well. And I made it in plenty of time. So today, the title of what I'm going to talk about is consistent with the theme, and it's live the way and be persistent. You know, you're going to forget almost everything I'm going to discuss with you here. So please remember this, that God spoke to Balaam through his ass or donkey. And he's been speaking through asses ever since. So if God should choose to speak through you, you need not think too highly of yourself. And if on meeting someone right away you recognize what they are, listen to them anyway. So please, regardless of how you see me today, I hope you'll listen. Paul says in his letter to Timothy 2:3, he said, I give you this charge. Preach the word. Be prepared in season and out of season. Correct people, rebuke, and encourage with great patience and careful instruction. For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they'll gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. They'll turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. And in his letter to the Corinthians, Paul says this, by the grace of God has given me, I laid a foundation as a wise builder, and someone else is building on it. But each one should build with care, for no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Jesus Christ. If anyone builds on this foundation using gold, silver, stones, wood, hay, or straw, their work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. It will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test the quality of each person's work. If what has been built survives, the builder will receive a reward. And if it is burned up, the builder will suffer loss, but yet will be saved, even though only as one escaping through the flames. 1 Corinthians 3:10 through 23. This is a core belief for me. I accept that Jesus spoke the word of God as I can best understand it, and I believe that my actions and my ability to center my life in his teachings as reflected in the Bible and other good books will help me live a better life with less suffering and to be more resilient to the stresses and strains of modern life. I truly believe that. That said, I also struggle continually trying to execute those very foundational beliefs in my daily actions. For instance, living the golden rule in all my actions. I repeatedly come up short. I get too caught up in my work, in my desire for nice things, and what I believe and feel rather than what is true and right. What I mean by this is that my actions, as do yours, speak louder than words. We're going to be remembered not for what we believed, but for what we did. Why is it so hard? You know, children seem to get it. A friend of mine who's a pediatric oncologist once told me that children with terminal cancer will often play and ride their tricycles the day before they die, with minimal pain and suffering, and with virtually no fear. One young boy told his father the day before he died that he shouldn't worry because he would put in a good word for his father when he got to heaven. Why can't we be more like that? On the other hand, we seem to get caught up in our selfish day-to-day lives and lose focus on what really matters. As a result, we lose our life balance and often find ourselves chasing rainbows. We fear the loss of our things, the loss of our youth, and we build our foundations on what's trendy and popular. We let egotism, wealth, and a false sense of importance and self-righteousness blind us from the truth. I worry about our youth today, who are often sold a Jesus that is a product of the 20th century, and a Jesus who is sold like any other commodity. Just as damaging, some will say, why do I even need Christianity? I'm doing okay as it is. I have a nice house, nice things, people like me. I'm doing just fine. In Matthew 7:24-29 in the NIV Bible, Jesus says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a crash. So what will you do when the next real storm comes into your life? On what foundation have you built your house? Is your foundation built on false security like modern medicine? Not that I don't think modern medicine is good, but the belief that your doctor is going to take care of you is a foolish one. And if you do believe that, you're vulnerable to feel an insecurity that will shake you terribly when your illness is determined to be untreatable. Americans are getting less and less healthy despite the wonders of medicine. We have a responsibility to take care of our body by building a foundation of metabolic health, just like we are called to build our lives on a firm foundation. Well, how do we build a strong foundation based on living the way? Jesus, I believe, was a revolutionary, and not the soft Jesus that many portray him as. I get so frustrated because some people think Jesus was just a really nice guy who liked to have children on his lap and basically had a life only destined to be crucified. That's the only time his life had any meaning. He only came here to have that happen. Jesus was a revolutionary. He was nonviolent, but a revolutionary. And one of his most radical beliefs was that God created all humans in his image. We are all children of God. Now, that sounds easy to hear, but it's not the way anybody practices, certainly not in our country. We are all children of God. Listen to the words of Jesus. He says this, you've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I tell you, don't resist an evil person. Don't resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek. Also, If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go a mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. These are not acts of passivity and weakness. So the way a lot of people interpret these statements are that, oh, we're supposed to be like soft, weak people and just do what we're told and even more. That's not what it means. These are not acts of passivity or weakness. Rather, they're acts of defiance and a demonstration of your strength and independence in spite of what authorities might require of you. Think about that. The Romans ran everything. A believer was basically a slave. So Jesus is saying, hey, if somebody strikes you on the left cheek, say, hey, that didn't hurt so bad, hit me on the right cheek. If somebody says, I want you to go a mile, you have to do it because they're Romans and you're not. Say, you know what? I'll go 2 miles. If they want your clothes, give them everything. And then say, what else do you need? It's an act of defiance. Jesus also says this, you've heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you. Holy cow, if you've been on social media, are you kidding me? We love to hate people. We love to persecute the people who think differently than we do. But Jesus says, I tell you to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you lose those who love you, what reward will you get? If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? I'm sorry. Are not even tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people in your tribe, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Again, we are called to be strong, not weak, and to act as if every person, regardless of what they believe, are children of God, worthy of God as much as we are. And Jesus goes on and he says, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge other people, you're going to be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your eye? You hypocrite! First, take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eyes. Do you really think, this is me, not Jesus, do you really think you are so gifted that you can judge other people? You might not agree with what someone does, but why do you think you're so special that you get to judge others? Paul, in his letter to the Ephesians, wrote this, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Did we miss that in Ephesians? This connects not judging with careful, edifying speech and a rejection of malicious gossip. That's what we're called to do, according to Paul. And finally, Jesus is asked, what's the greatest commandment? And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbors as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. We're all equal in the eyes of God, according to Jesus. Not the way the Jews felt. The Jews felt we were all equal in the eyes of God, meaning all us Jews. Plato believed the same thing. We're all equal but he meant only people of his class. That's not what Jesus meant. He meant all of us, even those we disagree with, even those who we think sin. The foundation of our lives is as critical as the foundation of any home. And when a builder cuts corners on the foundation, the final home is unstable and at great risk for disasters. The same is true of our lives. All that we do, all that we say is rooted in the foundation of our beliefs and the actions we take on those beliefs. Jesus is calling you to be wise about that foundation and examine your beliefs and actions against the truth of his word. We build that foundation day by day, brick by brick, carelessly accepting worldly interpretations of what is good may be a sign of cutting corners in the foundation of our beliefs. That new suit or car will sure make me happier, at least for a little while. Belonging to this group of people with popular ideas that I really like and condemn those who are not in my tribe or on my team. This is the work of a weak foundation. The foundation of our life needs to be built on the bedrock of the way, the teachings of Jesus Christ. And our choices make us who we are. We choose daily how we're going to react to various situations. And each time that we act, we impact the integrity of our foundational beliefs. The golden rule is often sought of as originating in Christianity with the biblical verse, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." Actually, some versions of the golden rule exist centuries before Christianity. And I tell you this not to say people had this great idea before, and they did. The Buddhists had it 600 years before Christianity. I'm telling you that because I think it's the truth. We're called to treat others like we would like to be treated. Really. Buddhist documents dating back from the 6th century BCE include this quote: "Hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful." The golden rule is a way to think about how to behave. It's foundational. Life will bring us challenges. There's no doubt about it. The rain will come down and the rivers will rise and the winds will blow. How will your house stand up? If you hear this and are 90% certain of your foundation, think again. That kind of certainty is almost always riddled with error. Living the way is a daily task. You build your Christian foundation a brick at a time and a day at a time. Acting in accordance with your Christian beliefs is what a good life is all about. How do we spend our days then? Well, here's an article by Herbert Stein called Golden Days. The key characteristic of a personal golden day in one word is peace, a feeling of inward peace. That is the ultimate blessing in the Judeo-Christian benediction. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you peace. I understand peace to mean a personal peace, a peace with the idea of who I am and how I belong as a human being in this world, my place. It includes loving and being loved, accepting and appreciating life, and finding our place in it. So here's a golden day story that I want to share with you. The author says, about 2 months ago, I was sitting on the beach at my usual bus stop at Kinetic Avenue and K Street. They're in DC. When a policeman escorted a girl or young woman, I couldn't tell which, across the street and seated her next to me. She was obviously blind, carrying a long white cane and keeping her eyes screwed shut. She could hear the buses coming up to the stop, but didn't know which bus was hers. So I began telling her the numbers, and it turned out that she was waiting for the same bus that I was, the number 80. Since she was so anxious about the coming of the bus, I asked her whether she had an appointment, and she said she was going to class at George Washington University, and the professor had warned the students not to come late. I thought of putting her in a taxi or taking her to the class in a taxi, but it wouldn't have cost very much. But I was afraid that she would think I was trying to kidnap her or molest her. There's a comment on the golden age. At last, our bus came and I helped her up the steps. She indicated that I could sit next to her and tell her when she came to her stop. At the stop, I helped her down the steps and the driver kept the door of the bus open so I could get back on. But it was clear that once she was on the sidewalk, she had no idea where to go. I motioned to the bus driver to close the door, took her hand, and led her along G Street to the university building she sought. Along the way, she told me that she had just graduated from Smith College and was doing postgraduate work in international relations. When I left her at the building, she thanked me. But I said that it was I who had to thank her because she had given me the great feeling of being needed. That incident made my day, and several days to follow, golden. I had done a deed of loving kindness. Loving kindness is different from charity. Charity, it can be done with money, but loving kindness requires personal involvement. Loving kindness yields a greater reward to the giver. Sow according to your charity, but reap according to your loving kindness. Hosea 10:12. Writing tax-deductible checks to charitable institutions does not make my day golden the way holding that young girl's hand did. And golden days don't necessarily result from extraordinary events. They can result from ordinary events happening to people who are receptive, appreciative, attuned to what's happening around them. Your psychological and emotional stance, not external events, is what mainly determines the possibility of enjoying a golden day. Golden days are not likely to occur if you're too busy or too preoccupied with the endless details of your day, or if you're angry and hateful, feeling you must attack those who you feel are wrong. I suppose it's aging that has changed my attitude. The realization that the days I have available to me are relatively few seems to increase the value and appreciation of each day. But you don't have to be older to appreciate each day. After all, none of us will survive this life. And we don't know when the end will come. Even for the young, the remaining days are relatively few in the scheme of time. I believe that practicing living the way, and as a result, fortifying our foundation, is what allows us to conquer our fears and to rise above the storms of our lives and appreciate the many gifts that exist all around us every day. Striving to live the way provides direction in life. With faith, there is direction and endless possibilities. Without it, we are more vulnerable to feelings of fear and worry and to suffer. In a letter from William James, often called the father of American psychology, he commented, "The great act of faith is when man decides that he is not God." I got to say it again. The great act of faith is when man decides he's not God. Who are we to judge people? Who said we get to be the self-righteous judges of good people and bad people on this earth? It's only when you realize that's not your role. Your role is to be accepting. Your role is to love your neighbor like you love yourself. It's to reach out to those you disagree with. We act in faith with an abiding faith in the teachings of the way, so much so that we don't just believe in our heads, but we believe in our hearts. We act when we feel that way. Admiral James Stockdale was a United States Navy Vice Admiral and aviator who was awarded the Medal of Honor in Vietnam War, during which he was a prisoner of war for over 7 years at what was ironically called the Hanoi Hilton. I was able to interview not Stockdale, but people like Stockdale who were in the Hanoi Hilton for years. Stockdale was the most senior naval officer held captive in the Hanoi Hilton. He was tortured regularly. And I mean, the way that the Vietnamese did it was they would torture you regularly. I mean, horrible and continually. And he was told on a regular basis that he was soon to die with no hope of ever being free. And it turns out that Admiral Stockdale was freed. And later, one of the things he said is that the test of a future leader and their merit may well not lie in perseverance when the light at the end of the tunnel is expected, but rather in their persistence and continued performance of duty when there is no possibility that the light will ever show up. That's how we're called to live. Even when there appears to be no end in sight to our problems, even though we think the world is going to heck in a handbasket, we're told to persevere, to have hope. In Hebrews, it said, faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. And I don't think anything is more true than that statement. Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. The fact that I'm not as close as I'd like to be living the way I believe I should be living, a good Christian life, I'm not going to let that stop me from persevering. We are called to continue our Christian journey. And that's my plea to you. I have a faith that there is a creator, even though when I look around, I don't always see evidence. But in my golden days, and I do have a few, in those very human moments, I feel the Spirit within my heart. These are the days that find the hope and desire for me to persevere, to live a life even for the moments at a time in the kingdom of God and living the kingdom of God as called by Jesus. And I thank God for the grace that I need to continue my journey. Thank you.